Welcome back to Routine Rundown, the show where we discuss the beauty industry and our routines beyond what meets the eye. I'm your host, Zoë Weiner, Senior Beauty Editor at Well+Good, and today we're speaking with the owner and creative director of PHLUR, Chrishelle Lim, whose fragrances have been taking social media by storm. In our conversation, we dive into the inextricable link between fragrance and emotion and chat through how to build a scent wardrobe so that you can embrace that relationship in your everyday life. Before we get to the conversation, don't forget to please leave us a review, share this episode with a friend, and subscribe to our newsletter linked in the show notes to keep the conversation going. Now, let's get into it. Hello, I'm here today with Chrishelle Lim, who you may know as a fashion and lifestyle influencer. And recently, she took over as the owner and creative director of PHLUR, a fragrance brand that you probably have found it hard to avoid on your social media pages because it's everywhere right now. Chrishelle, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of everything that you guys do, so really excited about today.
So I guess I'd love to start. You're relatively new to the fragrance world. You took over at PHLUR in 2021, correct? So tell me a little bit about that journey, kind of how that happened and how this role came into your life.
First of all, as you mentioned, fragrance is kind of a newer category for me. So a lot of people, they associate me with either fashion or beauty or lifestyle. I've always worn fragrance. It was a huge part of my everyday, but I never considered myself as quote unquote a fragrance girl. And it was really just about a year and a half ago when my business partner, Ben Bennett, who is my co-founder and partner for PHLUR, he approached me and he told me that he was going to acquire PHLUR and he wanted to do it with me. I was in a very interesting time in my life where I was going through some personal changes. I was going through a divorce, and it was one of those situations where I was like, what do I have to lose? Like, my entire life is changing right now. This sounds like a wonderful opportunity. I love Ben. I'm familiar with the work that he's done. I love fragrance. And Ben said something interesting to me, which really was one of the biggest reasons why I decided to jump on board was, PHLUR is going into its second chapter of its life, very much like you are. And it's the beginning of something brand new. And it would be beautiful for both you and PHLUR to kind of blossom and flourish together. No pun intended. And so when I heard that, it just something struck a chord in me. And I said, I am starting over and I want to pour my heart and my emotions and everything that I've gone through into something that is really beautiful, that I could kind of be creative with my experiences. And so I took on the project and I took on PHLUR with that kind of idea in mind, which is kind of sharing stories. He said, you don't necessarily need to know all the knowledge of fragrance because we are working with the best of the best in class fine fragrance perfumers and houses. All I really need you to do is just tell beautiful stories, create beautiful fragrances with these professionals. And that made me feel very confident because at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller, whether it be through videos, through photos, through my words. And that's what I've been doing for the past 15 years. And so that was the beginning of when I first came on board.
It's so interesting because I think more than any other category in the beauty industry, fragrance is such a personal thing. And it really does lend itself so well to this storytelling that you're talking about. This really, like, there's such an emotional connection, I feel like. And you can say to an extent something similar about skincare and makeup and all of that, but fragrance is so personal and emotional. What was that storytelling process like? Like, how did you translate into those first few fragrances that you've created? The stories behind them, and what was that process like?
Yeah, well, you are right. With fragrance, it's very different. Physically, you can't really see anything, right? So it's really about the depth of the story that you want to create behind a fragrance. And so, with our very first fragrance, Missing Person, that really took the internet by a storm, It was really a capture of what I was personally going through at the time. And I was not doing anything for marketing reasons. All I knew how to do was be so authentic to who I am, who I was, what I was going through. And I think because of that, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air for people because essentially what Missing Person was inspired by was my loneliness. Um, I was with this guy for 15 years, married for 8 years, and the hardest thing for me after my breakup, my separation, was waking up to an empty bed. I haven't been in an empty bed for 15 years. And so I wanted to bottle something up where it made me feel warm. It felt like skin. It was that skin to skin. It's like smelling really yummy, delicious skin, or that scent of your lover's skin that was left on a pillowcase or on a t-shirt that he left at your place, whatever that memory was. And at the end of the day, I created it for myself because that's all I knew how to do was create something that I wanted. And obviously, the rest of the world were able to relate. And that's kind of the common thread in all of our fragrances is that we all have our different journeys, but we all have shared experiences and emotions, which is emotions of sadness, emotions of happiness, excitement, wanting to feel attractive and wanted. And I think each fragrance kind of lends itself to a way that someone wants to feel or has gone through. And so yeah, the beginning stages of creating PHLUR was really therapeutic for me in a sense because all I was doing was telling these perfumers what I went through and how I wanted to feel. So that was actually a lot of fun and very emotional for me.
This brings up something interesting, what you were just saying. For me, I think that our approach as consumers to fragrance has changed a lot in the last, I don't know, few years, maybe 5 years. In that back in the day, it was all about, putting on something seductive and something to attract someone else. But it
Mm.
feels like now, particularly hearing the way you're talking about Missing Person, it's more about doing something for yourself and evoking feelings for your own kind of comfort and attracting you to yourself, I guess. Does that feel fitting?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I created all of these fragrances with our perfumers with the idea in mind of how I wanted to feel. So if that is to attract a certain someone or grab the attention, that is how I want to feel at the end of the day. But yes, I believe that the generation now wears fragrance very differently than our parents' generation. Even with our parents' generation, it was really about that one signature fragrance. And that's all you wear all year round until death do us part. But now it's about kind of building up your fragrance wardrobe. And it's very similar to how we create our own wardrobe for fashion. There might be days where you want to feel sexy. There are days where you might want to look cozy and warm. And so I just view fragrance as an extension of style. First and foremost, it should feed you, it should make you feel better. Walking out every single day, I feel complete. Like that is the end to getting ready, and the start of walking out my door is spraying on my fragrance, right? If I
Mhm.
don't do that, I literally feel so weird throughout the day because I don't smell like myself. I don't smell the way that I want to smell. And so I guess that's what travel size fragrances are for. You just like pop it into your bag, make sure that you always have something on you. But yeah, you are right. I think the generation now is wearing fragrance really for themselves and how they want to feel.
Yeah, I think it's so true. I mean, I was someone who wore the same scent for 10 years, 15 years, however long it was. And now I finally started to branch out. And I'm like, okay, here's my date night scent. Here's my cozy winter cabin scent. Here's
Uh,
my I'm sitting alone and just want to smell good scent. What does your fragrance wardrobe look like? What do you reach for and how do you decide that? Is it
yeah,
mood based? What is that? How do you put together your fragrance look for the day?
it's definitely mood based and it's definitely enhancing what I wear. I am a fashion girl. So once I complete my outfit, then I kind of figure out, like, okay, what would complement my outfit? What would be an extension of this outfit? And then I go into like, well, how would this make me feel? I do have like my go-tos for date night with myself or the girls. I have my fragrance that I wear to my meetings. I have a fragrance that I wear during the day. Apricot Privé is one of my absolute favorites that I wear all the time. It is a stronger scent, so it works both day and night. I actually wear it a lot during the day. Missing Person is like kind of the base for me. I'm always spraying on Missing Person, and if I want to add on something on top of that, we're really into fragrance layering at PHLUR as well. So it's really based on my outfits and also what I'm doing and mood.
And how do you apply your perfume? I feel like that's such a personal part of people's routines too.
I mean, there's absolutely no right or wrong way, except we should definitely never rub skin. That's one thing for sure. What I like to do is I like to spray a little bit everywhere. So I spray it on my neck first, and then my wrist. And then what I do is I spray it in the air and then I walk through it. And our scents last throughout the day, but I'm really not good about reapplying. So I like to start off strong.
Awesome. Okay. So I've been doing it wrong, rubbing my wrists together for 30 years. So I will now stop doing that. You learn something new every day,
Yeah, it
Chrishelle.
messes up the chemistry. You have to allow it to sit because the notes, it takes a minute for it to really get into your skin chemistry. But if you're rubbing
Mhm.
it, you're not giving it the chance that it needs to fully kind of come alive. So
Hmm.
I think once you spray it, you kind of let it be. If you're tempted to rub it later, but not in the
Okay.
beginning. Yeah.
And I know the brand also has body care, body washes, body lotions. How does scent play into that part of people's routines? Is there like that sensory experience?
Yeah, it's really about the sensorial experience. There's something really calming about it, and it just feels so luxe. Like it makes you feel like you're like at a spa or having a very expensive shower moment. So people love that. And I was actually quite surprised because we started off with fragrance. That's kind of like what we're known for. I thought the body wash and the body care would be kind of secondary, but I was actually wrong. Our body wash and body lotion are just as popular. And I think because the people that love these certain fragrances, they kind of want it in every category and have that full experience. And so the Fleur lovers, they kind of just get everything for that reason.
Yeah, I actually discovered FLIR via Hanami body wash during lockdown. I'd never bought a luxury body wash before. I was like, I'm gonna treat myself because my daily shower is like the only source of joy I feel like
Yeah.
during that time. And it has honestly, like not to be dramatic about it, has changed my relationship to showering where now I'm like, this should always feel like a luxury experience.
Oh, it's a game changer. It's like, why not just like take it to the next level and be able to really give yourself that treat?
And so I want to talk about Missing Person because Missing Person really took the world by storm. I feel like when it launched, people were obsessed with it. Tell me, I know we've talked a bit about the creation process of the scent, but how would you describe the scent?
So the immediate smell that people smell, like the top note, is a skin musk. And so I think one of the reasons why Missing Person went so viral was that everyone had a different experience with it because of the skin musk and the skin chemistry that people have with it. The top note is skin musk, bergamot, nectar, sheer jasmine. So it's very light and very fresh. Some people say that it smells like you just came out of a nice, warm, fresh, cozy, milky bath. And then the heart of it is neroli blossom and orange flowers. So there's kind of this light hint of floral, very light. Some people don't even smell it. And then the base, once you let it sit, and this is why you don't want to rub your skin because you will never truly get to the base until you let it sit for a while. But the base, once the dry down happens, is that there's sandalwood, blonde wood, and white musk. So it's a lot more of a musk once it dries down. And the story behind missing person really lent itself for people to share their own story. So they would spray it, and then they would it became therapy for people, and they would start crying and be like, oh, this smells like this memory that I have of my mom who's no longer here. And there's something about it that makes people very emotional. And I think it's that skin musk. Everyone has a scent memory of skin musk, and it's associated with something. Sometimes you really have to dig to find what that is, but it's a very familiar scent. So if you look up the hashtag PHLUR missing person on TikTok, one of the most commonly used words is that, oh my God, that's so weird. It smells so familiar. And it's not like we put some like fairy dust in there to make that like a magical marketing moment. It's really just a skin musk that makes it so universally familiar. And so, again, because of that, I think it allowed people to share stories.
I just sprayed it on as you were talking and I feel like every so often I'll spray it on and get a different memory. And I just got such a vivid like ex-boyfriend memory that I'm like, oh, there's my missing person moment for the day. Yeah, it's so cool. Oh, it smells so good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it brings up memories of exes, of family members that you miss, and um, it was created with the intention in mind that I was missing a moment in time or my ex-lover. But what's interesting is that once kind of missing person created a life of its own, people were saying that it reminded them of family members. And I never really tied it to a family member. I always kind of tied it to a lover or a romantic memory. But it's really interesting to see kind of what people are associating it with.
Yeah, that's the scent brain link is really, it gets me every time. I feel like I can smell something that I haven't smelled for 25 years and be like, oh, that smells like the apple orchard in Connecticut we went to when I was 6. Like, it's crazy.
It's fascinating, right?
Yeah. And I imagine that there are certain challenges that come with selling fragrance online and the fact that people can't smell it as was traditionally done. How have you translated PHLUR to be such a viral and digital first brand?
So when we were launching our first fragrance, Missing Person, we weren't sure how it was going to work out because traditionally with fragrance, when you see a marketing ad, especially online, you go to a counter, then you actually smell it. And if you like it, then you purchase it. So we were kind of prepared for that to happen. We're like, there is a really good chance here that people might be intrigued by PHLUR, but because we're currently not launching in any physical store, we're simply D2C at this point, people might not buy it. And we were ready to accept that. We were ready to have no sales at all. Simply what we are doing doesn't exist. Like it doesn't happen in the fragrance world at all. When we launched, thankfully, I have an incredible community. I built my kind of online digital community for the past 15 years. We had a decent amount of sales, right? We had a good amount. It hasn't gone viral at that point, but we were like, okay, this is more than what we thought. We're happy. This is great. This is a really good start. I think my followers just trusted me. They loved kind of how I described it. They were so intrigued by it. So they just ordered it. But that was my direct community, right? And then it was once influencers started receiving their package, and then also consumers started receiving their product that they ordered. So there was about a 2 to 3 week cadence after we launched before it went mega viral, because I think people really needed to experience it first in order for it to go that viral. And so I remember I was in Paris when it went viral because it was Fashion Month. And I think I was out having a drink with a friend and my business partner who was back in LA. It was like morning time. He's like, Chrishelle, pick up the phone. Like something's going on right now. And I was at like a bar and it was really loud. And I'm like, I can't talk right now. He's like, no, get out of that bar. Like we need to talk right now. And so I left and he was like, we went viral. And I'm like, huh, what does that mean? Like, I mean, I know what viral means, but I never thought that it would be linked to our very first product. And so he was like, we sold out of 3 years of inventory in the past hour. There's nothing left. You need to make an announcement so people won't freak out. And so I went online and I saw on TikTok, there were a few influencers, few customers that were all talking about it. And it just, I don't know, there's something about TikTok where, that kind of hashtag like TikTok made me get buy it. That's what it was. Like people were like, TikTok made me buy it. Like I saw this on TikTok and I bought it because of that. And so that's how it really started. And so I made the announcement saying that we sold out. We were getting another small batch because there was around 200,000 people on the wait list at that point. And the second batch, it sold out when we launched it within, I don't know, I think it was like 15 minutes or something like that. And then after that, everyone had to wait for, I think it was like 4 months. I mean, it was nuts. Like I always tell people, you can never plan for virality. You can never plan for a product to go that viral. And I'm so, so thankful that it was the first fragrance with PHLUR that actually went so viral because everything that we launched after that, we launched a fragrance a month, sometimes more. They all kept selling out as well because people kind of had that FOMO, that fear of not being able to get their hands on a PHLUR fragrance just in case it sells out again. And this also shows to you that there's a lot of different ways to look at marketing when it comes to fragrance and really beauty as a whole. Now, I think, especially with TikTok, it kind of leveled out the playing field where it's not just the top talking down to the consumer, it's also the consumer influencing up, right? They're the ones who created demand. It wasn't really my ad campaign that was so sexy that everyone wanted it because they wanted to look like me. No, it wasn't that. I mean, I'm sure that the campaign helped and supported that, but it was really the people. And these are everyday people. They're your neighbors, they're your moms, they're your teenage girls that are just creating reviews, and they created that demand. And so marketing has really changed, I think, for the beauty industry.
And I think it's so interesting. You didn't come from a fragrance heavy background where the way that you were talking about this scent and marketing this scent and really the scent conversation that you presented with PHLUR is much more approachable, I think,
Mhm.
than we've seen in the past where it was like, here are all of these really fancy French fragrance words. And you're like, this looks cool. Maybe I'll try it. But I feel like in the age of social media, approachability and accessibility and kind of understanding the why behind the scent has really
Yeah.
made such a difference.
Absolutely. Both is equally as important, which is the consumer conversation and also the perfumer, the fine fragrance perfumer kind of language and education and knowledge behind all of that, especially for the true fragrance lovers. So I think because we had both, we had different ways of being able to present each fragrance. So I would always create a video of how I would describe it. Mass majority of people were able to understand what the fragrance was about because majority of people don't really understand notes and fragrance chemistry and the science behind it, nor do they really care to learn that kind of education. They just want to know how it's going to make them feel and how it's going to smell on them, right?
Mhm.
But then on the flip side, we have the Jerome Epinette, the nose behind Barredo. We have Frank, who is the nose behind Santal of Le Labo, for people that really want to understand what it took to create a beautiful fragrance. We have those videos and that education available as well. Both are equally as important, and you have to present both in order for everyone, the mass, to be able to appreciate it.
Mhm. The brand doesn't use the term clean anymore, speaking of
Mm-mm.
ingredients, correct?
Yes.
Why what was that decision?
Well, clean means different things to many people. And also, clean is not regulated here in the US. And so we thought it was unnecessary. We thought that, the original PHLUR brand that we acquired, obviously they created beautiful fragrances, but it was a little fear mongering to people where, you know, this is the only way. And, you know, you have to live this clean lifestyle in order to love our brand. And I also believe in some ways that clean, the language clean can be negative and create kind of unnecessary kind of concerns among consumer. And we also realized that, you know, our ingredients and sustainability was really, really important. And so we also didn't want to strip the world's resource, the earth's resource of natural ingredients. And so I think it's really important that people understand that just because there are synthetics, these are safe synthetics, that it's actually more sustainable. And so again, clean is, it means different things to different people, and we want to make sure that it just felt more modern and intentional, the way that we were presenting PHLUR versus like us just hopping onto a trend because that's what, you know, marketing says that is good.
So I had it on my list to ask you about scent trends and fragrance trends, but I feel like after our conversation, are scent trends still a thing? Like, I don't want to ask what are the trends. Do you think that we're kind of in a post-trend world with fragrance at this point?
You know, like there are certain things that are very predictable for each season, right? Like for instance, in the fall, like you will expect lots of sandalwoods. People are craving more of that like cozy scent feeling and musky feeling or musky scents. And so I don't know if these are quote unquote trends, but these are staples in someone's fragrance wardrobe and what they actually would gravitate towards more during certain seasons. But there are certain, I think, fragrances that maybe follow more trend dependent on like kind of their age demographic of their consumer. But for us, we don't really try to follow trends. We obviously go by emotions, and usually during certain seasons, there are kind of like your go-to ingredients, but we don't really work with trends per se.
Chris, also the last thing that I wanted to ask you, because this is routine rundown, I know we chatted a bit about your scent routine, but tell me a little bit about the rest of your beauty routine, skin, hair, practices that make you feel like your best self. What does that look like?
I'll kind of run down my night routine because it's a lot more interesting than my morning. I do love a good shower at night. That is how I decompress. I love a really good hot shower. So I do, of course, my Fleur body washes, my body lotion. For my skin, I have what's called aging but hormonal acne skin.
Mhm.
So it's a little oily, but it's also getting drier as I get older. So I always have to do a face mask at the end of the day if I'm wearing makeup because my face is very sensitive with any makeup. That even like a light clay mask every single day on just like my targeted areas where I do break out. Yeah. And I also try to drink one water bottle a night just because I'm really bad at drinking water. I usually never get to it during the day at all. And so by night, I'm like, oh, I didn't drink any water. So I'm like just like gulping it down. And I always say, don't ever go to bed with like an anxious mind because you'll just wake up anxious. So I always
Hmm.
try to like, even on my bad days, I try to stick with my routine.
Amazing. Well, Chriselle, thank you so much for coming on. This was honestly such a treat. Really, I mean, I've fangirled hardcore over the brand. So I think everyone knows at this point how much I love the fragrances, but really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that you love the fragrance and the line. That is the best compliment that anyone could really give me now. So thank you for all your support.
On the next episode of Routine Rundown,
there is so much money that people with skin issues spend really believing it's going to help, and it's not right. I think that the struggle for a lot of women, and especially younger women, you're desperate for a solution. So when we were starting, price transparency was also really important, and it had to go hand in hand with ingredient transparency and quality transparency. But it was an important mission to me personally and us as a company to be able to justify why people are buying this product and why the cost is the cost.
on today's show, you heard me, your host, Zoë Weiner, in conversation with Chrishelle Lim. Routine Rundown is a Well+Good Studios production. If you like what you heard, please share with a friend or two so they can join the conversation too. We also have a newsletter for you to subscribe to, which we've linked in the show notes for extra insight on all things mentioned in today's episode. And if you feel so moved, you can always drop us a line at podcast@wellandgood.com. Routine Rundown is produced by Taylor Camille, Jen Snyder, and Abby Stone, along with help from many other hands and brains at Well+Good. Our episodes are edited by Sarah Gabrielli and Maya Stone, with additional production support from Malia Agadello and Ashley George. Our theme music was created by Nick Doss, and our show art was designed by Natalie Carroll, Jenna Gibson, and Alyssa Gray.